So Fallout 3 had a lot of beloved characters. You of course had Three Dog, Moira Brown, and Fox, just to name a few. And some of these characters, like Robert McCready and Arthur Maxson, even returned in Fallout 4 as older, more experienced versions of themselves. However, there are also other characters that are confirmed as no longer being with us in terms of the Fallout canon, and one of those was the leader of Lyons' bride, Sarah Lyons. While we know that Sarah is gone, I figured what we could talk about today is what really happened to her. After all, something never seemed quite right about her death. But I guess without further ado, let's discuss what we know about Sarah Lyons' death. As far as Fallout 4 is concerned, Sarah Lyons is confirmed dead in a terminal entry on Proctor Quinlan's terminal that chronicles the rise of Elder Maxson. In the third section, titled Enter Maxson, it stated that Sarah fell in battle after achieving the rank of Elder, and here is that entire entry. Enter Arthur Maxson, young squire to both Owen and Sarah Lyons, and descendant of the very founder of the Brotherhood of Steel, Roger Maxson. When Elder Owen Lyons died, care of young Arthur Maxson passed to Sarah Lyons, Owen's daughter, who was then named Elder in his place. But when Sarah fell in battle shortly thereafter, things became complicated. The Brotherhood of Steel, based in the Citadel, found itself in need of leadership and began appointing one ineffective elder after another. What I find interesting about this account is that it simply says that she fell in battle shortly thereafter, and it doesn't necessarily say how she died. For the sake of comparison, John Maxson II, who was the elder of the Brotherhood of Steel shortly before the events of Fallout 1, was killed by a member of the Viper's Raider gang. Specifically, John Maxson II thought that tracking down the Viper Raiders might be a good field exercise for some of his troops. However, John Maxson II and his detachment got caught in a firefight with the Vipers, and Maxson II was killed with a poison arrow. We even know how Roger Maxson, who formed the Brotherhood of Steel in the first place, died. Specifically, it's mentioned in the Fallout Bible that he passed away due to cancer in 2135. While both of the deaths of these important figures in the Brotherhood's history are covered in the Fallout Bible, and thus for that reason they may not actually be canon, there at least seem to be proper records of how Brotherhood elders end up dying. And while Sarah Lyons isn't necessarily High Elder of the Brotherhood, she pretty much was the leader of the East Coast Brotherhood chapter at one point and was a sentinel before that. So it just seems a little strange that she simply fell in battle, and that's the only account we really have. Additionally, it doesn't appear that Sarah Lyons was particularly hated by anyone in the East Coast chapter of the Brotherhood either. If you check the Citadel's terminal entries on her, Arthur Maxson, who would later become Elder Maxson in Fallout 4, indicates that he had a crush on her, as one of his terminals reads, and I quote, "Yesterday, Sarah taught me how to kill a man by stabbing him in the kidneys. I think I'm in love." Also, a lot of the other Brotherhood soldiers appear to find her physically attractive as well. In the Sarah's birthday entry on Elder Owen Lyons' terminal, it specifically says, and I quote, "I mustn't forget Sarah's birthday this year. Perhaps I'll send Cross to Rivet City to peruse the shops and pick something up. Something pretty. Sarah may have forgotten she's a woman, but I haven't, and neither have the rest of the brothers, judging by the looks that they give her." Attractiveness aside, Lyons' Pride was named after and formed by Sarah Lyons, so it's not like Sarah didn't command any respect among the Brotherhood's members. I guess what I'm getting at with all of this is that Sarah Lyons was greatly respected and admired within the Brotherhood, so it seems strange that they would simply mention that Sarah Lyons just fell in battle rather than elaborating on how she met her end. So a question that's worth asking is why Quinlan would be vague or omit some of the specifics about the death of Sarah Lyons. While we can't say for sure, Sarah Lyons' death may have the markings of what is called a passive cover-up. Typically, a passive cover-up involves the deliberate omission of important information rather than directly lying about the facts or the circumstances. According to Wikipedia, a passive cover-up is often justified by the motive of not wanting to embarrass the culprit or expose them to criminal prosecution, or even the belief that the cover-up is justified by protecting the greater community from scandal. So, in the case of Sarah Lyons, Proctor Quinlan is saying that she fell in battle, which I think is probably true. However, Quinlan may be omitting the circumstances of the battle, such as who Sarah Lyons was fighting against or how she was killed. To answer the question of who Sarah Lyons could possibly be fighting a battle against, it's important that we look at who the East Coast Brotherhood's enemies were. In Fallout 3, the Brotherhood is clearly enemies with the Super Mutants, the Enclave, Talon Company mercenaries, raiders, and finally the Brotherhood outcasts. So, assuming Sarah Lyons ended up dying in battle, it would likely be with one of these 5 different groups. Now, if you ask me, if Sarah Lyons was killed by raiders, Enclave, Talon mercenaries, or super mutants, I think that Proctor Quinlan would have mentioned that. After all, it doesn't seem like there would be anything controversial if Sarah Lyons died valiantly in battle, fighting off the super mutants, for example. However, it may be possible that the reason that we aren't hearing about the specifics of Sarah Lyons' death is because the Brotherhood outcasts may have been involved in some way. In fact, it might be possible that the person who ended up killing Sarah Lyons is still alive during the events of Fallout 4, and is currently a high-ranking member of the current Brotherhood of Steel under Elder Maxon. And if it were ever revealed that this particular person was responsible for Sarah Lyons' death, it could cause major scandal among the entire East Coast Brotherhood chapter. At the very least, the person responsible would probably be killed and the Brotherhood's reputation would be tarnished. At the worst, perhaps the East Coast Brotherhood under Maxon would unravel and split into 2 different groups. Now, I don't think this is out of the realm of possibility, since Quinlan does seem to be a bit of an outcast sympathizer, and if you read the background section of The Rise of Elder Maxon, it says the following. Despite the defeat of the Enclave in the Capital Wasteland, the Brotherhood of Steel was still an organization divided. The Outcasts, a splinter faction that left the safety of the Citadel, still struggled to survive in the Capital Wasteland, separated from their parent organization. And while some of the Brotherhood members within the Citadel had no desire to reunite with their quote-unquote disgraced brothers, many saw the advantage in bolstering their own force with warriors already trained and indoctrinated by the Brotherhood of Steel. Surely they could work out any philosophical issues. In that particular paragraph, Quinlan basically portrays the outcasts like they were being oppressed in some way, which I think is kind of funny because the outcasts chose to leave the Brotherhood of Steel due to the fact that they disagreed with Owen Lyon's decision to change the Brotherhood from being focused around the collection of technology to protecting people from super mutants. Ultimately, though, it does seem like Sarah Lyons could have been in battle with the Brotherhood outcasts and may have been killed that way. Then, when Maxon reunited both groups, he decided to leave the circumstances of her death in mystery to help maintain morale. We should also probably talk about how Sarah Lyons was killed in battle, and perhaps it's possible that Sarah Lyons was fighting a group of super mutants or some other group in the wasteland when she was killed by friendly fire. After all, as we've seen with Initiate Redding in Fallout 3, Sarah Lyons may have been accompanied by a recently recruited wastelander who wasn't experienced in combat, and perhaps an Initiate survived the battle, and when they encountered Lyons afterwards, they freaked out and then shot and killed Sarah, anticipating that she was a super mutant or that she was the enemy. Or alternatively, perhaps one Brotherhood patrol somehow misidentified Sarah Lyons' patrol as something else and ended up opening fire and killed Sarah that way. so it sort of would have been an accident. Friendly fire can occur provided that communication breaks down between various units during the heat of battle. For example, during Operation Cobra during World War II, U.S. Air Force bombers ended up bombing American troops. Or during the First World War, there are accounts of poisonous gas being deployed, and when the wind changed, the poisonous gas ended up hitting and causing a lot of casualties to that same side's own troops. As you can imagine, though, friendly fire is pretty embarrassing and tends to go underreported in many cases. After all, it doesn't necessarily look great if your own soldiers are killed, especially if that is from Allied soldiers on the field. As this pertains to Sarah Lyons, it's possible that the specific person who ended up killing Sarah Lyons is in a position of authority and understandably doesn't want the fact that they killed Sarah Lyons, whether it was intentional or not, to come out. After all, this could be used to undermine their credibility as a leader. Additionally, the death of Sarah Lyons as the result of friendly fire would be very embarrassing to the Brotherhood as an organization, and it's also fair to say that the truth would greatly affect morale and could potentially cause an uprising among certain in-groups. Perhaps you would see a rift develop between the more experienced troops that Owen Lyons originally traveled to the East Coast with and the more recently recruited Wastelanders. Ultimately, if Sarah Lyons died as the result of accidental or even intentional friendly fire, it doesn't look good and could lead to infighting amongst various groups within the Brotherhood of Steel and cause them to split apart once again. As I've said before, it's hard to say exactly what happened to Sarah Lyons. While we do know that she fell in battle, we don't really know the circumstances of her death. And while it's possible that she may have simply just died valiantly in battle, it's also possible that she may have died in either a pretty embarrassing way as the result of friendly fire, or as a result of the feud that they had with the Brotherhood outcasts at the time. I would say that if either circumstance is true, it's sort of easy to understand why Quinlan doesn't seem to be very specific about Sarah Lyons' death. Hopefully, we'll learn more about what happened to Sarah Lyons in future Fallout games. But alright guys, I think that's going to pretty much wrap up this particular video. If you liked this video, feel free to leave a like, click the bell to join the notification squad, and as always, take care, and I'll see y'all next time.